As Nigerian democracy enters into a new dispensation come 2023, there is a pressure in the air right now as we see that most politicians have thrown in their hearts into the ring for the toughest and topmost job in the country, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. On today's episode, we'll be looking at 2023, of course, everything that comes with it, especially on the economy. This is the Amina Atairu Show, and I'm your host, Amina. We'll take a break and we'll be back. The world is changing, business is evolving, shrinking workforce. The polity is starting, billions spent, yet insecurity persists. How can you live in a world and not be curious about what is happening around you? Why is happening? Where is happening? And how can the narrative change? From societal issues to climate change, lifestyle, and even entertainment. So many unanswered questions. Join me in finding answers. This is the Amina Atairu Show.
Are you all my personal dreams?
Thank you for always staying tuned. Now, on today's episode, my guest is amongst the most vocal human rights activists, a pro-democracy campaigner, a founder of one of the most interesting, I would say, online news agency, Sahara Reporter. He is the presidential candidate of African Action Congress, the AAC. Omoyele Sowore, thank you for having me.
Thank you for bringing me on your show.
Yes, just a few days ago, we noticed that there was a protest that I would say held Nigeria. Why I said Nigeria? Because we're talking about the commercial nerve center of the country, in Lagos, where we saw that the international airport was shut down. Yes. And we saw that you were on ground. You want to take us through that protest by Nigerian students?
Well, it's just a protest that happened because Nigerian university teachers have been on strike for 7 months. And the students were tired of staying at home. And they organized this protest. I heard about it 24 hours before, but I wasn't even sure if I could attend. And I was driving towards the airport the next day, and the entire place was grounded, and it was raining. So I got off and walked 2 miles towards the protesters. Found them, and it was very interesting. There were not too many of them, but they did make it happen. They shut down the airport. I heard that some international flights were already canceled their arrival.
Yes.
So many of the big people also could not leave. So I participated very briefly in it because I wanted them to own the protest. And I told them, I said, this is your fight, but we'll be glad to support you, because this is also my territory. I was a student leader for many, many years here in Lagos during the most difficult period in Nigeria, which was military rule. So I enjoyed it, but it was tough to be in the rain for 2 hours.
Honestly.
Just trying to get the protest. And I wish more people came, especially parents and other members of society, so that we can all jointly solve the educational strike in higher institutions of Nigeria.
Now, I recall that in one of your speeches, you said when you become president, that you would give each student 100,000 naira. Can you take me through that plan? How do you intend to achieve that per semester? Yes.
And my calculation is simple. People want to stay in school. You go to Denmark, they are paid $1,000 in a year. To the point that some students don't even want to finish school. And they don't even have as much as we have. The reason for my decision to do that is to support students. I arrived in the US in 1999. By year 2001, I've been offered admission to study at Columbia University, one of the top 10 universities in the US. The night I accepted my admission, I had been given grants enough to rent a house. If I wanted to buy a car, I student loans, everything was thrown at me. Some of them I had to reject based on advice that it might take longer to repay them back. And I'm wondering, I'm not even a US citizen, I just arrived there 2 years. And I was coming from Nigeria, where throughout my 4 years in Nigeria, I only got a check of 500 naira from the Ondo State government. In fact, to get the check out of their hands, we had to go and block the Ondo State.
At least you got 500,000.
500 naira.
500 naira, not 500,000.
But here am I, a stranger in another country, and immediately they offered me all this assistance. So Nigerian students, if you give them 100,000 naira, you have actually given them less than $200 a semester. Are we saying that as an sixth largest oil producing country in the world, we can afford $200 per semester for our students when when the accountant general can afford to walk away with 150 billion of our money? We give money to countries like Niger to buy SUV for their government officials. We give $10 million to Afghanistan. There's no relationship between us and Afghanistan that will make us part with such money. But we don't want to support our students. And these are the students that supposedly are supposed to lead this country into prosperity in the future. There's no investment that is too much for these students. We calculated the number of students who are in school and how much this will cost. It's nothing. Nothing compared to the tax rebate we just gave to Dangote and some other companies, 16 trillion naira. Let me give you another example. When Buhari came into office, they found huge amount of monies belonging to Nigeria hidden in banks. Hidden in banks. These banks, so many of them never relinquished the money to Nigeria. They were able to find a back-end way to keep the money by bribing Buhari officials. All these things I know, and I shouldn't be saying too many of these things on your show, so that my opponents will not capitalize on
that.
Yeah. But I have a duty to speak directly to the Nigerian people on how to solve their problem. And I'm not making promises that I can't keep. I have followed money everywhere in Nigeria, including outside. I was saying on the show today that some of Nigeria's money is what is powering the development
of other countries,
of the United Arab Emirates. Houses that are bought there. There was a time that customs, mobile police were accompanied huge amount of money, put on the plane and flown to Dubai. We make sure that is not happening. They're laundering money everywhere. So, and I'm saying this categorically because I have followed the money. I've been a journalist who covered corruption extensively. My life is like one of people catching thieves with my bare hands.
When you become the president of the Federal Republic, what would you do to ensure that the cost of governance first in the country is reduced to the barest minimum?
Yes. Cost of governance can't be reduced until you eliminate a lot of, redundant agencies.
When you say redundant agencies?
Yes. You get rid of several positions that we don't need. I, for example, don't know why we have a minister for a ministry and a minister is the second minister, or they call junior ministers. When you already have someone who is already a permanent secretary in that place. Get rid of all these duplicates, political positions that add no value, special assistants or advisors that you don't take their advice. Get rid of their positions, And I think ultimately the best way to save money is to get rid of the bicameral legislative system we have. Yeah, I'd like to get rid of the Senate in particular.
Okay.
And keep just one
house.
Just the same way we have in the States. They have just one straight House of Assembly. Let's have a House of Representatives in Nigeria, and not have a Senate where former governors spend their life retired. That's the retirement homes of government. You're already paying them like humongous and criminal pensions. You now create another avenue for them to retire, and they contribute nothing practically. They don't go to work as many times as even regular workers go to. And guess what? Their take-home pay is 14 million naira a month.
A month, yes.
Lecturers in Nigeria who are in strike today are earning between 450,000 naira a month.
And
600,000 naira a month. Do you know how many years they have to work before they get to 14 million? an average of 8 to 10 years before they earn the salary of a senator in 1 month.
Quite a number of people have asked the question, and they want me to point that at you to say that they are of the opinion that the politicians may not necessarily be the problem of our country, but the Civil Service Commission. Because when we also look, the Civil Servants Commission.
There are civil servants who are there, and I don't like to call them civil servants, I call them evil servants. And these are the people who teach the politicians some ways to even hide money. But the politicians are the ones elected to run Nigeria, not civil servants. And if the politicians are not part of the game, the civil servants cannot get away with it. So these are, these guys are working together. They collude all the time. If that is not happening, trust me, Nigeria will not be the way it is now. There are civil servants everywhere in the world, but there's nowhere in the world where civil servants get away with blue murder like they do with Nigeria. It's because the politicians collude with them.
Okay, so we're going to also see the ways you'll be able to actually stop that from happening after we return from this quick break. The world is changing, business is evolving, shrinking workforce. The polity is starting, billions spent, yet insecurity persists. How can you live in a world and not be curious about what is happening around you? Why is happening? Where is happening? And how can the narrative change? From societal issues to climate change, lifestyle, and even entertainment. So many unanswered questions. Join me in finding answers. This is the Amina Ataru Show.
Are you all my personal dreams?
Thank you for always staying tuned. I'm still with the presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, the AAC. I'm talking about Omoyele Sowore. And we're still looking at Roadmap 2023 and, of course, how we can make the government right now unattractive. And some say we need to actually look, by the way, of the Civil Service Commission. But he believes the politicians should actually be the one held.
They're the ones elected to run the country. Civil servants and the evil servants. So there are some people who do their job, so I can't just put all of them in the same basket. Are there to collude, and we can always take care of them if the politicians are doing what they should be doing. I was talking about National Assembly.
Yes.
Look at the number of assemblymen or lawmakers we have who are just contractors. They're there. They don't even hide it. Their companies are the ones running shows that involves like conflict of interest. You have some of them who go around ministries and they say they are doing investigations. There's just plain extortion from those ministries. So sometimes to get the budget passed, you have to give so much money as bribe to these men. Why do we have them around? Why don't we just start cutting costs at that level? And then cutting costs by eliminating ministries that have nothing or any relevance. So I've come across ministries in Abuja that they don't even have like signboards because they can't afford to tell the public that they exist. Some of them you walk into the ministry, everybody there is asleep and they close by 12 noon. Some don't even come to work at all, but they're all getting paid. But the bigger problem with the cost of governance is the number of ghost workers we have. One ministry just said, I think it was the secretary to the government, they just weeded out 54,000 ghost workers. You understand? Of which the most ghost worker in Nigeria has not been weeded out as president. Man doesn't work. I don't know why we keep him there for this long. That's the president now. But on the side of the civil service, where there are fake workers, ghost workers, technology is a solution to resolving those things. Go to all the ministries in Abuja. Make sure that you can't enter your office if you don't put your finger on it. If your finger
clock in, clock
is
out.
not recorded in the database of workers, you can't enter any ministry. You can't even enter the building. except we are given an appointment to come. That's where technology will happen and will be used. Even the payment of salaries. I will ensure that this e-naira that they are talking about, which is technology, blockchain technology that we know a lot about,
Yes.
will be used in the payment of workers. So if we wrongly paid you, we can track the money. I will get rid of paper. I still go to places in Abuja, including our courtrooms, to do any payment. They still have to write down your name on a paper. All these things are ways and means of wasting money. And the moment you use technology a lot, you can get rid of a lot of redundant positions anyway, and pay people off to just retire early. Because I won't put people out in the market without adequate compensation. So all these strategies I'm talking about will reduce the cost of governance, especially the use of technology to adequately take care of who are workers and who are not workers, services that you are required to do. And you can imagine in the US, you can get judgments at home sent to you by email. You don't have to go to the judges every day and sit down there and wait for cases. If you don't need to be in court, they reduce the amount of time people spend in court. We should be able to file cases from home.
Now you
instead of going to court and lining up in the registrar's office and everybody's on top of everybody, that is not effective delivery of service. If you want to go and get a driver's license, you can file for it at home, and the day you are supposed to go, you get a tag, you get there, you get your driver's license and walk away. It's a revolving door of service. But here, we are stuck in the past because the place is run by old ideas.
Now, how do we move forward, in the administration, having you as president come 2023? Now, there are a lot of concerns when it comes to political candidates and elections in the country, where it seems that if you don't get, quite a number of voters, I would say, from the northern part of the country, it's hard for that person to emerge as president. How do you intend to attract the northern voters?
So I would say with some certainty, our vice president is a credible candidate from Kano, for instance.
Yes.
And we think he can attract a lot of voters from there. Kano, because Kano has always been politically different. It's Kano that accepted someone like Aminu Kano, who was fighting for the interests of the poor. So we have a number of northern states, we have a number of interest groups that we had been associated with and fought for, who have been victim of this current regime, who are also very willing, who have indicated to us that they will vote en masse. Some of them have up to 10 million members. Now we can't tell on election day who will vote and who will not vote for us. But that looks good for us.
Okay.
The other thing I want to say is that the North is not as backward as people think politically. They can think for themselves. I, for instance, in 2019, had more acceptance in the North than I had in Lagos. Everywhere I went to the North, and I traveled to almost all the northern states except Borno and Yobe, because we couldn't get police protection.
Yes, because of the insecurity, yes.
Everywhere I went, I was well accepted. You ask, why is it that it didn't reflect the number of votes that was allocated to us by INEC? It was because that was not an election, and I've been saying it everywhere. So these Northerners also want a better life. Contrary to what they want to make you believe, they are elite. They want to go to school. Everywhere we went, I can't forget, all the women were shouting, we want Makaranta. They had asked what's Makaranta. Of course, I did my NYC in the North. They said it's school. They were not asking us for money. We went to some other parts of the country where you thought people were politically savvy. They were asking us for money. Give us money, give us money. We went to Lagos, people were locking us up in compounds, demanding for ransom. We went to Kogi State, they attacked us, demanding for ransom. Meanwhile, the North that everybody was saying was dangerous was the place where we had best acceptance, because they're politically open-minded enough to listen to you, what you have to present, what you have for them, because their elites also have taken them for a ride for too long. So sometimes, contrary to what we think, the North is actually a more open place. Of course, I cannot discountenance the fact that religion has a role to play in the North. Culture has a role to play in the North. But it's the same thing everywhere too.
Let's look at track record. A lot of Nigerians like a situation whereby they say, oh, we can attribute XYZ success or this project to, either a political candidate or a presidential candidate as it is. What can we attribute? What can we say that Omoyele Sowore has done this for the Nigerian people?
By 1999, the most important thing to everybody in this country was democracy. Right? I was one of the people, when I was really, really young, that fought for democracy in Nigeria.
Yes.
As a student leader. It was like fighting to end apartheid in South Africa. And you come up and say, what have you done for the country? And people say, oh, I fought for apartheid. And they say, oh, wow, that's great. Just like Mandela did. And I'm not comparing myself to Mandela. Just like he did. What did he do? He sat in prison for 27 years.
Yes.
Because he was fighting both from outside and inside to end apartheid. And when it was time for South Africa to enjoy democracy, who did they choose? The guy who fought. And then the flip side of it are the other candidates with track records. In fact, the other candidates had managed states in this country for 2 times. One was the vice president for 2 times. Look at the country. Look at what the experience did to us. The man who is president of Nigeria today should have been the most experienced person in the country, if not the world. He was the governor of what used to be 2 states, Gongola State, which is now Adamawa. He was Minister of Petroleum Resources, or was it Commissioner they used to call them. He managed the biggest slush fund under Abacha. I think it was PTF. And he's done it all. He came back second time as president of Nigeria. Look at what his experience is doing to you. So when you're talking about experience, you should know that there are great experiences and there are inverse experiences. And you should go for great experience, because when countries are looking for leaders, they look for leaders that can lead them with focus, with vision, and that are mission driven. That's what countries look for. That's why they didn't write it in any constitution that you must have been a 2-term governor before you can be president. That's why they didn't write it in any constitution that you must have been a senator before you become president. As a matter of fact, since 1999, there were only 2 people who were former governors who became president, Yar'Adua and Jonathan. And Jonathan was an accidental governor. His governor was impeached and he became governor for a few months. And then he was vice president and became, by default, president when his president died. Otherwise, there's nobody else who had passed through all the stages. But if you want to even go in the direction of saying, well, you must have been local government chairman before, and then you are governor and you are senator, that means that the only person who is qualified amongst us is Atiku. Because he's naturally supposed to be president. And please, in editing this, don't claim that I endorsed him, because he's one of the old people that must not be allowed to be near the seat of power, who ruined this country during their own time. But I just want people to use logic and let's all use our senses to not, get these arguments or this conversation mangled up in the inverse logic of you should have a class captain. As a result, you can become a principal of a school. You understand? So if you're not class captain before, you are not supposed to be principal, right? It doesn't make any sense.
Vote buying, campaign promises, has been what we are used to as Nigerians. What would be your promise to the voter there?
See, I'm probably the only presidential candidate that has a printed, written, and digital manifesto published online. And this morning I was told that it has been converted to Pidgin English, which means more people can read and understand it or hear it. So our promises are based on what we call Spicer Heat, which we deal with about 10 immediate issues affecting Nigeria.
Number 1.
One of it is security. power, energy, infrastructure, which will be massive investment that will bring in a lot of employment for young people, to fight corruption and plug leakages. Education, massive for us, right? And we have an idea to restructure Nigeria, where we want to go after the Nigerian constitution, which we know to be a fraudulent document, get rid of it, and put in place a new constitution. That's our own way of restructuring the country. Because you can't restructure Nigeria without changing the constitution. We have held, I think we mentioned education, agriculture. We mentioned tourism and technology. And then the E's economy. And our own economic agenda is based on wealth distribution.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, out there we've heard from the presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, the AAC presidential candidate, Omoyele Sowore. Who would be your preferred president for 2023? We'll be finding out. Thank you again for having us on the Amina Tairu Show. Thank you for having us.
Please keep watching Amina Tairu Show.
Thank you once again. Yes, we've heard from the presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, the AAC presidential aspirant. We're talking about Omoyele Sowore. He has said his bids. Who would you vote for? Send us questions. You want us to have him back again on the show. You let us know. 2023 is right beside us. My name is Amina Tairu. I'll see you again. Take care.